Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our newest installment of the Wyoming Airports Coalition Lunch and Learn series. I apologize for the few minutes delay as we were finalizing logistics to get this meeting started. I'm very pleased to continue this series and very much appreciate your attendance. I truly hope that these lunch and learn opportunities are valuable to you. I hope we're picking subjects that help you professionally and then also allow you to sharpen the saw. Um, my name's Kyle Butterfield. I'm a board member of the Wyoming Airports Coalition, and again, want to welcome you today. We're very pleased to have a presentation by a member of the Riverton National Weather Service Office, Lance Vanden Bogart. He's able to provide us a lot of information about airport operations and weather observations. And honestly, this is a great topic as we are about to springboard into our fall conference in Jackson. And I really want to make a plug right now that while these Lunch and Learn series are valuable and they help us to ensure that we're up to speed on various topics, our fall conference as a coalition is the greatest opportunity to do that. Not only do you get an opportunity to receive information from a number of presenters and experts across several subjects, yeah, you get the even better benefit of networking together and strengthening your connection as a coalition and members of the coalition. So I do hope if you have registered for the Jackson Conference next month, that it will be a great opportunity for you. And if you haven't, let me tell you now, you will not be disappointed if you register. There's still time and you come out and participate because I know my experience with the coalition has always been valuable, but the attendance of the conference is where I've received a lot of value and support. So without further ado, what I'll do is I'll let Lance take over. And again, I want to thank him so much for joining and hosting our topic today. I'll be backstage managing any questions that come forward and then also monitoring the chat. We'll allow time for questions at the end of the presentation. But with that, Lance, I'll turn the time to you. If you want to unmute and allow your video, then I think we'll be ready to go.
Sounds great. Just want to double check you can hear me and that you're seeing a screen that says something about weather.
We've got it. We've got something about weather, and we see you and can hear you. So again, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today on our virtual Lunch and Learn.
Yeah, my pleasure. Just to verify, you have about 60 minutes total. Is that correct? Until 1 o'clock, and we'll leave a little time for questions. Is that about what you guys usually do? Okay, very good. All right. Well, I will go ahead and turn off my screen. You guys don't have to look at my face the whole time. But my name is Lance Vanden Bogart. I'm a meteorologist here with the National Weather Service in Riverton. And yeah, I was invited by Kyle to come and speak with you all, and happy to be here. I do want to just point out a couple of those informational pieces there on the bottom of this title slide. There's my email address, there's our work email address, and maybe most importantly is our 800 number where you can get 24/7 meteorologist support. So if there's nothing else that you take away, hopefully that 800-211-1448 is something that you write down. I'll give you an assignment later, so look forward to that. But you'll see that number pop up a few more times. All right. So maybe the first question: why care about weather? I'd probably preaching to the choir here, but it's the most common cause of delays in the national aerospace system, with about 74 or about 3/4 of delays are caused by weather. So if we know something about weather, we can at least partially mitigate the impacts to delays and cancellations and all those sort of things. Here's another reason. We had a recent turbulence event that happened over our forecast area. This was not, the plane did not take off in our area, nor did it land in our area. It flew over Wyoming, going from Utah, was intended to go to Amsterdam, I believe, but then ended up landing in Minneapolis. So not sure how many of you had heard about this news story, but it was some pretty extreme turbulence. And that's because the plane was going over a severe thunderstorm, not intentionally, but it happened to form underneath their flight path or right along it. And sure enough, it caused extreme turbulence and a lot of injuries. So weather certainly does affect airport operations and flying in a great degree. Okay, so I am going to start with a little bit of introductory material. We'll focus a good amount on observations today, a little bit on forecasting, but then as Kyle mentioned, we were extended very graciously an invite to the conference next month, and we'll be there. And I'll focus a little bit more on kind of the forecasting side of weather rather than observations. But I tried to focus this presentation primarily on those observations. But first off, who are we? So the NWS mission is circled there in that red box. We provide weather, water, and climate data, forecasts, warnings, and impact-based decision support services. And then the purpose here for the protection of life and property. So that's one. And then enhancement of the national economy is two. So that really drives what we do as the National Weather Service. We're a part of the Department of Commerce, so federal government. And then underneath that is NOAA, which is National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And then we fall under them as National Weather Service. So a lot of you are very familiar with FAA, which I'm pretty sure is Department of Transportation. So that we're similar in some ways to the FAA as far as our overarching, governmental structure, but very different in many other ways. Okay, I clicked my link on accident. There we go. All right, let's try it again. So hopefully you can see that screen, and let's see if I'm still going forward. There we go. Okay, we're back. So monitoring all types of impactful weather. This is what we do as National Weather Service meteorologists in the local Weather Service office. So you can see there, I'm not going to read all these, but all sorts of impactful weather, even specifically for aviation. You can see icing, ceilings. These are things that the National Weather Service as a whole deals with. At the local office, a couple of these are not things that we deal with often, but they are closely related, and we know who to contact if you were to reach out to us to be forecasting these types of weather. Okay, as far as our individual office, we are located in Riverton, Wyoming, so kind of central portion of the state. You can see a map on the upper left where I circled our forecast area. We cover about 2/3 of Wyoming. I'll get into that in a second. But there's on the upper right is a picture of our operations area. So lots of computer screens. We're doing a lot of data and analyzing data there through our different systems. And that is where we issue warnings, where we issue the terminal aerodrome forecasts, the TAFs, in other words. And there's about 122 of these offices across the U.S. There's about 12 of us meteorologists per office when we're fully staffed. 3 electronics technicians per office, and they work on like ASOS, AWOS. There's a handful of other support staff, and we do have 24/7 operations. So you can call that number. It won't be a call center across the globe. It'll be one of the 2 meteorologists sitting in Riverton, Wyoming, that can help you with weather forecasting, specifically making decisions about weather. All right, so our area of responsibility, we cover Western and Central Wyoming, as I mentioned earlier, technically 58% of the state. Our elevation here in Riverton is about 5,000 feet. Fun little fact, our station pressure is about 830 hectopascals. That varies based on the weather systems, but that's a rough average, which means that we live above about 17% of the Earth's atmosphere. I know that you all are from different parts of the state, but in general, Wyoming sits in that, 4,000 to 7,000 feet above sea level range. So we all can brag to our friends that live at sea level that our lungs are 17% better than theirs because we process that much less oxygen and we're still able to function well. So 4 other offices do cover the state of Wyoming. So we've got the bulk, but NWS Cheyenne in the southeast covers a good chunk. Then you got Rapid City in the northeast. NWS Billings, the local office there, covers Sheridan County, and then Uintah County is covered by Salt Lake. Another division of the National Weather Service is what are called Center Weather Service units. These are with the ARTCs, and so you see there Salt Lake and Denver. Those are the 2 areas that cover the state of Wyoming. So those are there's a team of 4 meteorologists at each of those ARTCs that do specific weather forecasting for all the partners at those locations. And I did want to take just a quick minute to mention this. You know, if we're talking about a winter storm warning or a winter weather advisory or winter storm watch, I think it's very helpful for everyone who deals with the Weather Service to kind of know like our three big products there and how they stand. So if you see the little arrow that points to the right and it has a red dot on the right, you can see that as time goes to the right and you approach a weather event, we have certain products that we issue. So a watch is a potential impact. It doesn't mean that you're watching it. It's not happening yet. It's potential. And then we have to make a decision if that's going to be a high impact or let's say a moderate impact event. We have to decide are we going to go with a warning or an advisory. So when you hear those terms from the Weather Service, just know that this is kind of the hierarchy. The warning is the big one. That's the one in red there. It means high impact weather is imminent or occurring. So that's the one you really want to kind of change your plans around or make significant adjustments to what you might be doing. Okay, so that was my brief introduction of who we are as the Weather Service, but now jumping into weather equipment and observing, it's key for us to know the current state of the atmosphere, just like for you all to know what's going on as those planes are, taking off, landing, operations are going on there, how much snow are we expecting. So how do we observe the weather? Well, here is kind of our number one tool for aviation weather forecasting, and that would be our ground instruments or weather stations, might be another word for it, surface weather observing stations. The most common ones that are very high quality that we use for aviation are the ASOS, which is a network that we maintain as the Weather Service. Those are federal, so they're federally funded and federally maintained by our trained staff. That's kind of the gold standard, at least in our mind, for weather observing, because it's got all the sensors we could possibly want for weather. And then you also have the AWOS, which is there's an example there on the right-hand picture. These are the non-federal, a lot of these are non-federal sites. Some of them are federal, but AWOS equipment is very similar to ASOS. You can see that even visually they look kind of similar. And we kind of view that as like silver standard. It's not necessarily ourselves maintaining it, but they're oftentimes very high quality sensors to the level that, planes and airports and aviators are trusting them. So it is high quality data. I'll do a quick just walk through on the left-hand picture. Maybe Kyle or someone else, if you're able to unmute, are you able to see my cursor like when I wiggle over something, or do I need to describe it based on location? Like if I'm wiggling over the sensor, can you see where I'm showing?
Lance, unfortunately, well, actually, I just saw your cursor, so we are able to see that cursor.
Okay, very good. It's kind of small, trying to make big circles, but thank you, Kyle, for just confirming that. So yeah, on the left there, this is our sonic anemometer. So that's measuring wind speed. If you've seen an AWOS, or rather an ASOS at an airport, all these little pieces of equipment, now you know that that's where your weather is coming from. So on the top left, you've got the sonic anemometer measuring wind speed and direction. Then you've got here a rain gauge. So that's measuring the amount of precipitation. Not necessarily the type, but these are heated, so it will melt down any snow, so we can see the liquid equivalent. Then you've got right here is your temperature sensor and dew point sensor. This is the present weather sensor. So it's saying what kind of, whether it's flakes or raindrops that are falling between these two cameras. This is kind of the brains of the unit, the hardware box with all the computers and circuit boards and such. With the transmission there on the top with the antenna. Then here you have the ceilometer. So you got a laser that goes up at a 4-degree angle. So it's not bouncing back right at itself, but it shoots up and it can measure the cloud heights. This is a freezing rain sensor here, second from the right. And then last but not least, the visibility sensor, which is a very key one for aviation interests. And you can see that the ASOS has a lot of similar type of observing equipment at that site as well. All right, so as far as where are these setups located, you can see that the gray ones on this map of Wyoming are our National Weather Service operated and maintained ASOSs. So those are those gold standard sites, all here in the gray. Then you have multiple different types of AWOSs. You can see this little chart I grabbed off of an FAA website that describes what each of them is. But essentially, all the ones in Wyoming are in this middle section here, either a 3, or a P, or it has the PT, so thunderstorm reporting as well. But in general, the lower down this chart you are, the more weather information you have, and the better of a sensor that is as far as our uses go. So if you're having to decide on what kind of sensor, you want to do some comparison, but some of this stuff is pretty key for us making a good forecast. So the farther you get down that chart, the better off you are. I know there were some questions. I should say this too. Over the past year, we've been visiting our commercial airports, and we've gotten a lot of good information from that. One of the questions that came up, and I'll ask this question near the end, but for a little more detail. But it sounded like you guys were potentially, a lot of airports across Wyoming were going to be getting some sort of secondary weather sensor. So I included this slide just as a little information, and we can loop back to it if that is relevant for you all. Okay, if we zoom out a little further, not necessarily that gold standard or silver standard, but how else do we get weather observations across the state? Well, we have other surface weather networks that have sites all across the state. So this is kind of the southwestern portion of Wyoming. You can see Sublette County here, Sweetwater County, Fremont County. And a lot of these sensors are kind of in the cities or along the interstate corridor. But we do have a lot of sensors even up in the mountains from even snow measuring sites from the USDA. We do have some fire weather RAWS sites that go into this. But there's a lot of different partner agencies that will post weather information online through various channels. And these get collected, and we are able to view all these weather variables across the state. So we do have a fairly dense network of surface reporting. But as you know, if you're flying, you're not always on the surface. So that can be kind of a challenge, especially when it comes to things like icing and turbulence. So that is where you have to look at some additional information. So I guess before I go to that additional information, I did have a slide here. There's another good site that is run by our Aviation Weather Center. They're based in Kansas City, Missouri. And they grab a lot of these same observations, but they're very focused on aviation weather specifically. So they plot it on maps that are relevant to aviators. And there's a ton of tools here. I'm not going to get into a lot of details on this website, just because that gets into some of the forecasting stuff that I'll be talking about next month. But observations, there is an option where you can just select observations. And I wanted to show an example of this is actually from this morning. I just took a snapshot to put a fresh example in here. You can see that there's lots of, the key on the bottom has all sorts of different colors. The map itself, if you're not used to looking at this, you're like, what the heck am I looking at, Lance? The point here is not to understand it fully, but you do have, flight categories as far as what's currently occurring across the national airspace, including for Wyoming. This example is taken over Ohio because that's where they have interesting weather today. But you can see individual ASOS, AWOS sites that are reporting, LIFR versus IFR, MVFR conditions. What exactly is their temperature dew point? On here is also reported pilot reports. So it's a combination website that grabs a lot of different information streams and puts it in one place, so that you don't have to be going to 15 different websites to get various types of different weather information. All right, so now, as I was talking earlier, I was saying that we have a pretty solid ground network, all things considered. However, the upper atmosphere is much less sampled. We don't have a lot of weather observations there. Well, one thing we do here at the Weather Service in Riverton, and this actually occurs at about 60 sites across the United States, is that every 12 hours or so, we will launch a weather balloon. And what that does is it carries a little computer sensor up through the atmosphere. We call it a radiosonde. And there's 4 instruments on that little sensor. It's about the size of your fist if you make a fist. It's got a thermometer. It's got a hygrometer, which is humidity sensor. And then it's got a GPS chip. And so based on where that GPS chip is located, we actually back out the winds because it's attached to a floating balloon. So then it's one and the same as far as its motion is related to the winds. And then we have an antenna, which sends the data back to our office. And what you'll end up getting from this, this is another chart that I don't expect you to have mastered, you take a whole, it's a whole section of a class when you go to meteorology school where they describe this QT log P diagram. But essentially what that is showing you is a profile of the atmosphere. So a line going up through the atmosphere, not directly straight up because the balloon does, kind of move over to the side, but it gives you a sense over central Wyoming, what is the atmosphere doing? How unstable is the air? Where are we going to have cloud layers? So this is very key observation information for us as weather forecasters. All right, another tool that we use quite often, regardless of season, for thunderstorms during the summer, but then for where do we have snow occurring during the winter and how persistent is that snow, is radar imagery. So if you've ever been driving through the Riverton area, kind of up by the airport, if you go just past the airport, keep going up the hill, at the top of the hill, you'll see our radome, which is that big white golf ball or soccer ball or whatever you want to call it. But essentially it's a big bathtub. It's a big fiberglass shell that protects all of the sensitive equipment inside from getting rained on and hailed on and all that. So inside of there, you've got a 10-meter dish that rotates. It rotates around about once every 20 to 40 seconds. It depends on what scan pattern we're in. But we can look at the atmosphere by just shooting out radio waves and then listening to see how much of that radio wave energy comes back. And that's how we get our radar imagery. So you can see an example here on the right. This is taken from back in May, but numerous thunderstorms, a good bit of light rain there in the green. But really it's that those red colors are where you're getting heavy rain or hail. So that's your most interesting weather. And if we look back to that example I showed earlier about turbulence, that black line is the flight path of that flight that hit severe turbulence and had multiple injuries. You can see that it goes right into the core of one of those red blobs on radar. So I'm not sure what radar they had, on board there on their plane, but certainly kind of an image there that makes you wonder what was going on, that they were kind of core punching that thunderstorm. I do know that it was very rapidly developing. So that was maybe part of it, is that it was underneath their flight path until it hit their flight path. So regardless, that is an example of radar imagery being useful and helpful. Okay, we do have some limitations though with radar. I know that not all of you are from Riverton. That'd be a lot of people, work in the airport here in Riverton. So you're at different locations, but one thing I did want to mention regardless is that our Riverton radar, along with the other Weather Service radars, the nearest ones, by the way, are roughly Cheyenne, Rapid City, Billings, and then Grand Junction and Salt Lake are pretty far away, but Pocatello, if you're over in Jackson, Pocatello, Idaho, they have a radar as well. So we do have some other locations around us, but we do run into this problem with our big basins and then really tall mountains here in Wyoming, where our radar beam will be going out. Well, if any of the radar beam hits the mountain, it just bounces back, and we call that ground clutter. It always looks like a big thunderstorm. So we kind of cover that up, essentially put our electrical tape on our dashboard for that location, because we know that that's just Gannett Peak that's bouncing back energy. So it's really only the radar beam that gets above the mountains that is going to reflect off of raindrops and give us information about a thunderstorm on the other side of a mountain range. So just want to make that known that places like Pinedale, Rock Springs, if you go over to Buffalo, from the Riverton radar, you're getting pretty far away from us. Places like Thermopolis, Casper here in Riverton, a little bit closer, Rock Springs even, not too far, although there is some terrain there that blocks the lowest beams. So we do have limitations with what we can see on radar, and especially in the winter. A lot of winter, snow, freezing drizzle, that stuff happens in that lowest, lower than 12,000. Oftentimes it's in the lowest 4,000 or 5,000 feet of the atmosphere, and we just can't see that happening on radar. So there are times when we are a little bit surprised if the weather models ahead of time didn't say it. We actually don't see it forming either, and we can get a little bit surprised by that until we see it on the ground observations. So just know that there are limitations to all of our technology. Okay, this is, I'll just quickly go through this. It's kind of interesting. We have a Doppler function with our radar, so you can see both whether the beam is incoming or if it's outgoing. Like, are the droplets or whatever the beam is bouncing off, are they moving away or towards the radar? This helps us see rotation and some of the most dangerous weather. Not that we have tornadoes hitting airports regularly, but it is something that is a capability of our radar. Okay, there's a lot of talk in the media. You'll hear people, different weather forecasters online or something say, the weather models are showing this. Well, what is a weather model? This is another tool that we use. It's definitely more for forecasting, but it also has analysis, which means like what's happening at the current time from a meteorological perspective. This is complex fluid dynamics code, which is run on supercomputers. They're developed over the past 50 plus years with continuous improvements. You can kind of think of it as like the smartest meteorologists over the last 50 plus years, all condensed down into a program that can help you. There's hundreds of variations of these as of this year, and we are basically data analysts of this data. So we're not like going outside and sticking our finger and feeling which way the wind's coming from and then typing that up and sending it to people anymore. Weather models are doing the bulk of that type of work of what's coming, what's going to happen. Our job is to take a whole bunch of bright colors and lines and pictures and make that into something that can help you all make decisions. So just know that when you hear weather models, that's essentially what you're hearing. Take a quick drink here. All right, so satellite imagery. This is another tool that we can use. Even when we don't have radar, we oftentimes can see stuff via satellite. Whenever there's interesting weather, there's oftentimes some higher clouds that block the low clouds, but we can at least see that there's something interesting going on there. So satellite imagery takes images every 5 minutes over the US. The weather satellites we have are about 1/10 of the way to the moon. So that's kind of a fun fact. We have 3 of them. I believe actually 4 of them right now. 2 of them are operational and 2 of them are on orbit spares. It's a lot safer to store a $1 billion satellite way up in the atmosphere than to have it on the ground where the shed can blow over and dust can get inside of something and ruining it. If you put it up in space, it's actually the best place to store it. So I do show an image there on the upper right, and the point of this is, again, not to fully understand it, but know that we can use false color imagery. So in this image, kind of the bright green colors, that's snow cover, so we can see where there's snow. The bluish green is low clouds. Once you get to yellow green, that's mid clouds, and then those like pinkish orange colors are the most wispy high cirrus clouds. So we can see something about the layers of the atmosphere even by looking at the clouds that we're observing. All right, I'll jump into some specific NWS aviation services and forecasts that we provide for our aviation partners. So the first, this is called the Terminal Airdrome Forecast. Hopefully you all have heard of this before. It's targeted not only to pilots, although they are very much a primary user of the data, for airport managers, anyone doing maintenance at local airports. This gives you a detailed forecast over the next 24 hours, and it's human written. So even today, there's still us meteorologists writing these because aviation is such a high priority and high danger thing to do. It's still worth it to have humans take a look over the data and kind of give our 2 cents on what we think might happen. So these are specific to airport terminals, and there's a 10-mile ring around the airport. That's the area that it discusses. And these are made for about 700 airports nationwide. Everything has pros and cons, as I try to teach my sons. But some pros of this are that it's a long established process. You can quickly see highlights once you get to know the coding, and many tools are available to decode these products. The link on the bottom there, I didn't mention this earlier. A lot of these slides do have links on the bottom where you can click and go to that resource. I will go ahead and provide this to you, Kyle, for you to fan out to your desire afterward. So don't feel like you have to write those down, but that's where you'll find it. They'll always be on the lower left there as far as where you can get this data yourself. A con of this data is that it's not graphical, so you need to decode it. And then when these are being made, we do have varying skill and experience level of forecasters writing these. So, you might be getting one that we send them every 6 hours, but maybe one set is from a 20-year veteran airport forecaster. And then you got someone who's doing it, it's their first year in the Weather Service, and they're getting the ropes. They're trained to do so, but 20 to 30 hours of training is not the same as having 10,000 hours of experience doing something. So just know that can be a potential con at times of these human written forecasts. Then we have automated airport forecasts. So this is part of the Localized Aviation MOS program. MOS, it's an acronym within an acronym, which as federal government, we love to do that sort of thing. But LAMP, if you ever hear LAMP, that's what it's referring to. Again, on the bottom left there, you can find some documentation about what this is. But this is very similar to the TAF in that it's encoded weather forecast data. This time it's over the next, instead of the 24 hours, it's 38 hours. So a little bit of a benefit there. They're specific to airport terminals, just like a TAF, and they're available at over 3 times as many locations. Almost every single airport has one of these points where it's doing the forecasting. And a pro of this is, again, it's a long established product. I think this came out in the early 2000s and they've been improving it ever since. Another pro, it's automated. So it's apples to apples data. Every year or two, they do update the weather data that goes into these as far as the automated data. So there's improvements being made, but from 1 month to the next, or from one shift to the next, morning flights to evening flights, it's not a different human with different biases that are tweaking things and saying, oh no, now there's not going to be any thunderstorms. Oh wait, yes there is for the next one, and you go back and forth and that sort of thing. This is going to give you, a nice level-headed, the same sort of apples to apples forecast. So that can be a pro at times. And then cons, it's still not graphical, and you do need to decode that. So it looks like a whole bunch of numbers on a screen, but I can guarantee you once you get used to that, it's a very powerful tool. Okay, apart from those 2,313 locations, there's also the gridded LAMP, which is an acronym within an acronym within an acronym now. So it's like the third, what was that movie, Inception, where they're going like levels down in the subconscious. That's kind of like what's going on there with the with the acronym. But know that this is gridded, so it's got data all across the United States. So you can quickly identify areas that have interesting or problematic weather aviation wise. This was a snapshot from let's see here. This was overnight. You can see that the Midwest into the East Coast had a lot of interesting weather going on with the weather system moving through. Here out in the West, you've got all white, not much interesting weather as far as you're looking here at the ceiling height probability of less than 1,000 feet. So there's a lot of pockets and different portions of this weather system where 80 to 90% plus chance of having low cloud cover below 1,000 feet, whereas out west we're totally in the clear. So the pro of this is that it's graphical. You have many different variables. This is just one example, and it is using probabilistic data. So you're getting the probability of something looking at those 100 plus models. It's not just one person or one model that's trying to make this forecast. You're getting a much more robust set of information that you're viewing. Okay, so that is a forecast tool. And then here we have our area forecast discussion, specifically the aviation section of this. This is a text-based discussion of weather pertinent to you all in the aviation community. We try to focus this on, things like, are we going to have MVFR, IFR? What are those cloud heights doing? Is it going to be a gusty afternoon? To what extent? That's the kind of information you'll see. There's a snapshot here that I took and pasted it in. But usually it's about 2 or 3 short paragraphs talking about aviation concerns. These are fairly broad, but they do, apart from where you have some of the more specific information, you can at least see what we're most concerned about from a weather expert standpoint. Okay, so those are all the specific aviation tools and things I wanted to point out, but we do have some additional weather services that are useful for all partners, including yourselves. So This portion of the slide deck I'll probably show again come October, because it's pretty key that as many people as possible see this. We have our partner email list. So this is kind of our tap on the shoulder for upcoming impactful weather. It gives you an idea of where you can expect moderate to high impact weather. So kind of that advisory to warning, if you remember our discussion earlier, it's going to tell you where that, what are we concerned about with this upcoming weather system coming in. It's not always relevant for your airport, but it's going to be relevant for Western and Central Wyoming. So it can be a very helpful tool, because, you know, weather in general moves from west to east. So especially for places in the central portion of the state and eastern part, this information can be a little bit of a heads up for you as weather moves in. But even for Jackson in the far west, we're going to be sending these out, you know, a day or two ahead of time. So try to give some good lead time on what we're worried about weather-wise. If you do want to be added to this, I don't have a link on this slide, but I do say, you know, email nws.riverton@noaa.gov. So that was that same email address you saw in the beginning of the slide deck. We'll just need a little bit of information from you, and I can get you added into our system so that you receive this email. So do not hesitate to do that. Write down that email address right now if you want to just shoot me an email after this, and I can try and get you in within the next day here or so. Okay, attached to that email is what we call a decision support packet. This is kind of the meat of that email. The email itself is a summary, and then you link to this PDF document that has all sorts of potentially helpful details about the upcoming weather. Separate from that, this is what we call our special event support. So we do weather monitoring when there's events. You can see that I snapshotted an example here over from Pinedale Airport. So not sure if Pinedale's on today. I'll ask at the end kind of who's all represented, but they have a short takeoff and landing event, oftentimes in the fall, kind of late summer, early fall. And this year, I guess it looks like it was on August 14th to the 16th. And what we did for that is we provided constant monitoring of the airspace kind of near Pinedale. So if you have some big event going on, you know, a Wings and Wheels, something like that, these are the kind of events that we can take a close look at the forecast, be monitoring, and call a point of contact, whether that be yourself or somebody who's, you know, working closely with aircraft operations that day. We can give you detailed forecast information, especially timing. A lot of times you can click an app on your phone and get decent weather, but it's not going to drill down to like, hey, in about an hour and a half, you're going to have a line of thunderstorms moving through. Pretty high confidence. You know, we're looking at gusts to 40 to 50 miles an hour. You're not going to get that from an app. That's the kind of stuff that we try to proactively provide for these events. So there's a phone number. That's not our 800 number. That is the number that goes directly to my office phone, because I'm probably the best person to contact for that. So if you want to write down that number, 307-857-3898. And then if you do extension 726, that'll go right to my phone, and I can try and get you set up with one of these. Okay, NWS Chat. This is another tool that's for all of our partners, including aviation partners. It's a Slack-based app. You can download it on your phone, and essentially it's just a little chat interface, but you can view it as a meteorologist in your pocket 24/7. Because we're working 24/7 and we always have this open, you're able to quickly ask a question. I know the younger generations, I don't know how many of you consider yourself in the younger generations, but a lot of times it's like a phone call is almost like an offensive, huge deal sort of thing. It's like, I'm pretty comfortable making phone calls myself. But for those that might just want to chat something quick, this is a little bit, even an easier way for those that like text to ask a question or get your information or get information to us as the Weather Service. So you can use the link on this slide to register for an account if you'd like. And if you have any problems with that, just do reach out to me at that personal email I had put on the title slide there. Okay, at INWS, I think this is one of my final tools that you can use. This is automated or text email alerts for NWS products. So this, you can choose an area or an individual location. So if you're just concerned about an airfield, you could pick that, or you can kind of draw a box around where you care about weather alerts. This specifically is getting to that watch, warning, advisory kind of product. So pretty high-end weather, but it can be helpful sometimes instead of having to check a website constantly, where you just get that information pushed to you. So feel free to sign up for this service. Okay, some additional forecast tools. This here, I'll pause real quick too and say I am kind of wrapping up. I probably got about five or 10 more minutes at most, but I hopefully you're not getting overwhelmed, but I'm trying to rapid fire just a lot of interesting tools. And if anything piques your interest, that's where I think you can call that 800 number or call my personal work number there. And we can just talk and try and get you set up with something that might be most helpful for you. So please don't be overwhelmed by all this, but I do want to talk a little about forecast points because it's one of those best just overall weather information sites that we have. So in the beginning of your day, I encourage people to, for 5 minutes, look at the weather of what's happening in the next week. It's specific to a 1.5 mile by 1.5 mile box. You might have to click a few locations if you want to, if you're looking, for a flight path, because it is individual locations. But it's updated every 3 hours, and it has just about every weather element you can imagine over the next 7 days. So here you can see that there's some information about severe thunderstorms or general thunderstorm threat. You've got hour by hour breakdowns for the next 7 days. So 162 little columns there. You can scroll with that bottom scroll bar and see exactly what direction the winds are. When is that wind shift expected to come in? We could talk to you about that if you call the 800 number, but you could also just get it, at least a first guess of it, from our weather forecast grids themselves. This is directly tied into our forecasting grids. And then if you like the charts better, as far as like little line graphs, that's another way to view this hourly data, is by little just kind of dot plotting all of the various weather variables you could imagine. Okay, another tool for in the winter. This is it's showing a blank map right there as far as the screenshot, because we don't really have any weather coming in anytime soon. But what this is a great way to see like middle of the road snowfall forecast, like a worst case scenario, and then at least this much. So kind of like a low end, medium, and a high end snow amount, and all sorts of different breakdowns of this data. This is one of the tools that we've been pushing pretty hard in the last year or so, because this is the new way for viewing that most detailed snow information. So it's a great thing to kind of self-brief yourself on for incoming snowfall, and then you can always call us if you have additional questions about that. Here's an example of that high end and then low, I should say low end, so 90% chance of more snow. And then on the right side, high end amount, 10% chance of higher snow. So most weather models have less than that. You can see I circled Casper here. The city of Casper, and this was a April event from last year. You can see that because of the temperatures and the uncertainty in the temperatures, at least 10% of models actually had no snow occurring in Casper, whereas 10% of models had 8 inches or greater of snowfall occurring. So what that is telling you is that for Casper, this was a very uncertain forecast. There's a lot of things that could just be slight modifications that would really mess up how much snow you ended up getting. So keep that in mind, that this can be a great way of seeing forecast confidence. There's some other tool. I'll jump ahead just because I want to leave enough time for questions here, but this is other ways to view that probabilistic data. There's a Riverton example. All right, so let's go to wrapping up here in just a few final items. So here's your homework for everyone. You didn't think you were going to get homework at Lunch and Learn, but I don't know, maybe I'm the first one to assign homework, but if so, I'm happy to do so. We have that meteorologist hotline, and I want to give you each an action item due by, I picked tax day because no one likes tax day, and homework, no one likes homework either. But if you could try to give us a phone call maybe 3 times this winter. We're the federal government, so we're being paid for by all of your taxes. So I just encourage you guys to utilize that money. We're not trying to sell you a product. We're just we really want to help our aviation partners more. So anytime you're making a critical weather decision this winter, consider calling that 800 number and just give it a shot. Also, anytime you were surprised or negatively impacted by weather, that's good to let me know, and so that I can relay those scenarios back to our forecasters. Maybe we can do an after action report deep dive on that scenario and prevent it from happening again next time. So please consider that. I'm not gonna double check on 415 and call every one of you and make sure you did your homework. But please take that for what it's worth. I tried to make it a little humorous there, but I'd love to. Our whole staff, the 10 or so of us, would love to hear from you, and we're not too intimidating, at least not most of us. All right. Kyle, I don't know if you usually have kind of like a two-way communication on this Lunch and Learn, but is there a way to open up comms or have people talk, or how do you usually do question and answer for folks?
Yeah, first and foremost, Lance, thank you so much for the information. I thought it was very valuable, and we appreciate you taking the time. For question and answer, we can utilize the chat or the Q&A applications in the webinar itself. Or
Okay.
if you would be more comfortable as a participant coming forward, I can permit you to be visible and heard, and would be happy to allow your entrance, so to speak, into the webinar. So
Okay,
maybe we'll just
perfect.
hang out for a few minutes and see if we have any questions that come in.
That sounds great. And I'll maybe start off with one for all of you to just put in the chat. I'm kind of, I'm new to your guys' group and to presenting here. Who's all represented today? Which airports are you representing? So if you would, while you think of questions, just quick chat. Riverton, Pinedale. I'm pretty familiar with the state because we look at a map every single day that we work. So you don't have to be too detailed about your airport name. I kind of know which one it is. But thank you for just giving me a sense for who's all on the call today. And then I did want to ask the one question I'm trying to find some information for. I think, Kyle, we talked about this the other day, was what is there a place where we as the Weather Service could see like the number of operations per month or per year for individual Wyoming airports? Is that data collected anywhere? Or is that like each individual airport may or may not collect that data? I was trying to get a sense for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and you may see this in the chat, Lance, but just to show who's represented, we've had responses from Cody, Laramie, Cheyenne, Fort Bridger, Jackson, Casper, and Gillette. So you have a pretty good representation across the state of both general
Awesome.
aviation and commercial service airports.
Got it. That is helpful. Okay. And then so I don't know if I you're the only one I see on camera, Kyle. Do you know of somewhere that has that, or is that something that that YDOT might have through their aeronautics, or any idea how to get that kind of information?
Lance, I think this is a great question. This is something that all of our airports do track, and
Okay.
we probably need to follow up with you as far as a central location. We
Okay.
have some folks in the chat that reference a service that's available called Aero 1200 or 1200
Oh,
Aero. That's a great service that shows all operations on the airfield, both general aviation and commercial. And that's also an initiative that the state is spearheading as part of one of the studies it's conducting right now. So that would be a repository of information that I think you're going to benefit from.
okay. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And then if there's any in the chat, if you want to throw any other questions, I was kind of making this. I got a little bit of information from you all as far as what you wanted, maybe focus on observations, that sort of thing. But now that you've kind of seen a presentation from the Weather Service, was there anything that I touched on of like, oh, that's actually what we're very interested in? Some of that other stuff, not so much. Any sort of feedback from you regarding that would be very helpful. And then that was kind of like my last question. So anything, any other specific questions, feel free to chat them as well, and I'm happy to take those. Looks like we got another 8 minutes or so.
And thank you, Lance. If some of those come through in the chat, we can definitely observe those, but I would extend the offer to anyone that's participating in the Lunch and Learn, that you can email me and I'd be happy to forward any of that feedback to Lance, especially as he prepares for our upcoming fall conference, and that might help guide you on the topics you'd like to present there, because I know this is a wonderful intro and again a springboard to even more information and better information that will be provided just in about a month in Jackson as we get together for our fall conference. Well, with that, Lance, it doesn't look like we're getting many questions coming in, so that means you get an A+. You were very thorough and provided valuable information. So what I'll do is just say thank you again, and maybe make one more plug for our upcoming fall conference. We are so thankful for the community of Jackson for hosting that. As a reminder, the dates for that conference are going to be October 14th through the 17th. And in addition to receiving information and presentations from the National Weather Service, we will have industry experts on site that will participate and also provide information that you will find valuable. Some of the other session topics range from community engagement, how to work with your community and promote your airport better than you already do. And then also we have topics ranging from establishing rules and regulations that will help you succeed and also your tenants succeed and be compliant with FAA and local regulations. And I'm really excited about this topic, but we will have a session on artificial intelligence and how to utilize that in your operations and even in the management of all that you do that go into the overhead of running an airport. So very topical issues, and we really hope that you have the opportunity to participate in our conference. If you haven't registered, go to our website, get registered, get your hotel. And if you have, I really look forward to seeing you in Jackson in a month. And just as a reminder, our reception and dinner will be at the historic Cowboy Bar, and that will be a lot of fun for all of us. So Lance, with that, I'll just turn the time back to you, but maybe for a closing remark. But again, I just want to say thank you. We really appreciate you taking time, supporting the coalition, and clearly the information was very valuable to us.
Awesome. Yep. Well, thank you all very much for your time as well. I know your time is valuable. The top of that slide there, this last one, thanks for your time. 800-211-1448. That's the 800 number. Kyle already gave me an A+, so thank you for that. Now we'll see what you guys get as far as if you're going to call me 3 times before tax day. So please do try to call our office. It won't be me every time answering the phone, but one of our meteorologists will help you out with whatever decision you have to make.
Okay, there's your homework. Everyone, thank you for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Lance, thank you again. And with that, we'll sign off.